Welcome back to Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. I'm Alex, host of the show, and I am really excited to say this is our 50th episode of the podcast, which feels really crazy on paper and in practice. It's strange to me to think that when production for the show began, I was still a senior in college. I knew that this project had some longevity, but I remember thinking when my professor and sort of ghost producer on the show asked, Al, how many episodes do you think we can get out of this topic without pulling teeth or boring the audience? My initial guess was about 15, which was enough to give the idea a go. And here we are, 50 episodes later. Crazy stuff. Alas, enough about how the show came to be. I want to jump right into the substance of this very special episode. From the beginning, this show has often attempted to answer basic questions that, from a distance or on the surface, may seem simple, but are many times convoluted or hazy for very silly reasons. I sound a bit like a broken record when I say it, but the thing that drives me every single episode is the importance of democratizing art and museums. These places are important and need to be accessible for everybody. Museums are inherently inclusive, educational, and important spaces meant to share ideas, creativity, and history with the widest audience possible. We've tackled dozens of questions, from how to feel comfortable interpreting art for the first time to why things like fashion or filmmaking or writing or storytelling, whatever, are just as valuable an art form as painting and sculpting. I am really proud of the topics we've covered and the fog that we've tried really hard to remove from institutions big and small so that anyone, anywhere can feel welcome at an art museum, a library, gallery, the list goes on, a cultural institution, all of them alike. I just want to be very clear. I feel like I'm giving a lot of pomp and circumstance for this episode, and it may feel a bit like I'm gearing up to be like, and this is it. This is the last episode. Not true. We will answer so many more questions. That is so far from the reality. There's so much more to say and stories to tell. But when I'm preparing for this episode, I realized that I may have avoided arguably the most obvious question the show could have ever created. In fact, it's a question that is invoked in the literal title of the show. That is, why are museums for you? So for episode 50, we're going to do something a bit different. Instead of going back and forth with a guest in this interview format you've come to know, I'm instead going to place a microphone in front of a few different staff members here at MAM. Some of them are going to be familiar voices that you've heard from the show, some new, and I'm going to just simply ask them one question. Why are museums for you? I'll end up answering this question before the end of the episode, don't worry. But for now, I just want to hear from some of the people who have dedicated their careers to, supporting the arts, nonprofits, and museums. Alas, here is the episode.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm the digital marketing manager at the Montclair Art Museum. I like to learn things. I like to learn things about things I know nothing about, and that can be harder as you find yourself outside of formal schooling settings. And museums are just these hubs of information that are filled with things that I often don't have any previous knowledge of, where I can go and explore and learn and find new things to fall in love with and find new interests.
Hi everyone, my name is Audrey Rocklore. I'm the curatorial assistant at MAM. Museums are for me because I think the way a museum functions within the community is changing. I think it functions as a cultural space, a community space in a time when we don't have as many of those as we once did. I think the purpose of a museum is to best serve its community members. I think MAM does that really well. We have lots of classes and programming and things of that nature for anyone who happens to stop into the museum on any given day that we're open. And I think I've always been drawn to spaces that are intended to create conversation. So dialogue about culture, social issues, politics are really important now more than ever. And I hope that the museum provides a place for that.
This is Asif Iqbal, Director of Marketing at the Montclair Art Museum. The reason why I think museums are important is this is a place where you can, or museums are a place you can come to access art. People may think art is not for them, but I think that perception changes once they actually attend a museum. So my idea with museums is to try to get as many people here as possible to experience art and hopefully change their opinion on what a museum is. Art is emotional, so you're going to connect with something that you see in art. It's visual. That's why I'm not a big fan of, and it's fine to use it as academic or whatever you want to do with that piece of it. But at the core, I think art is you look at something and you're going to get an emotional reaction out of it. Whether you like it, dislike it, love it, hate it, whatever it is, you're going to get something out of it.
Hi, my name's Abby. So I've been at the museum for almost 4 years doing this events gig, but I studied art history and museum studies in college. So as you can imagine, museums as an institution, they mean a little bit to me, even though I didn't get to go to them a lot growing up because I lived in Arizona. We only had a couple museums. It's a whole thing. Also, budget was tight. It's okay. But when I was in college studying about museums as an institution, I learned that historically they are very exclusive spaces, and a lot of people still consider them to be exclusive spaces. I think now especially, this is a really beautiful way for us to show the true breadth of the human experience, the diversity that is involved in that, and contradict the foundation that museums were founded upon. Because really, art in any form, any medium, is a vessel to tell a story. There is a really robust history and living, feeling entity to a painting or a sculpture. And I think coming to a museum is a great way to meditate on that, to meditate on your role in the world, and meet new people as well. Like, art is the great unifier. Not to sound too serious, but I do think that art is one of the greatest things that can bridge any divide between us.
Is this thing on? That was a joke. I know this thing's on. So Alex, the question is, why are museums for you? That's a great question, Alex. I'm happy and eager to answer that for me. No, seriously though, I fell in love with museums a long time ago, but I really didn't understand how deep that love was until a little bit later in life. My first time at a museum was in 2014, I believe. I'm sure I was at a museum earlier than that. I know for certain I went to the Franklin Institute at some point in time to go see like a Star Wars costumes show. So obviously I had previous exposure, but the first time I ever like sought out a work of art that I was like, I need to see this, was in 2014. I had the opportunity to go travel to Italy with my grandmother and my great aunt and my cousins. And I had this infatuation with Leonardo da Vinci. It's something I've talked about on the show before, especially in the earlier episodes, but I was insistent we needed to go and see The Last Supper. And so we did. And it was amazing. And it was breathtaking. And it was the most informative, maybe moment of my, early teenage years. And then flash forward. I didn't really go to a lot of museums. I didn't seek out art. I still had this love and appreciation for Renaissance masters, but it didn't really go much farther than that. In high school, I started taking French, And by proxy, I joined the French club, and I, started going on the field trips. And my French teacher, and she was also my track coach, she was a huge museum goer, really, really passionate about the arts and arts education and art history education, and instilling that in us young, rural Ocean County, underinformed students about, the arts more broadly. And so we had 2 field trips every year. We went to the Met and we went to the MoMA. We did the MoMA in the fall, we did the Met in the spring. And I remember the first time that I went to the MoMA, it must have been my sophomore year of high school in the fall. And I fell in love with it. I saw, obviously, Starry Night, and I saw Picasso's, and I saw, a lot of really, really interesting, abstract work. I saw some films that were being shown. It was a really special introduction, and I'm so glad that the first proper museum that I consciously remember enjoying and going to was a modern art museum, because I think it really shaped what my understanding and appreciation for what art can be and should be considered broadened, and that was really important. And then in the spring, we ended up going to the Met, and the Met was really, really transformative. I was just enamored by everything that I saw, and I was going through the Monets and the Van Goghs, and I was recognizing things that, I had seen and understood, from art classes in elementary school, and it was really special, and, it was amazing. And then I stumbled across this painting that was eerily familiar, because my entire childhood, without me even realizing, we had a print of it. It was a Monet painting of a seascape, probably of a bay and the coastline and boats and stuff. And it had hung in my dining room my entire life. It's still hanging there to this day, that print. And I was just so floored by it. And to see it in person after unconsciously walking by it and taking it in for, at that point, 16 or 17 years of my life, was emotional and special. And it really, really left a mark on me. And then obviously I ended up here at MAM, which was just, it felt like the most serendipitous kind of transition. And to be here full time now is so special. But I feel like as I'm kind of talking, I'm tiptoeing around why museums are for me. And I want to get to the actual, answer. Around the time that I had kind of known I was coming on full time to the museum, I was still in college, but I was taking on more responsibilities beyond just my filmmaking, my documentary storytelling. And the podcast hadn't quite come into reality yet. I was asked to do an interview with 2 people. The first was a trustee of the museum who had this immense collection that he and his wife had collected over years and years and years. They ended up showing some of those works at MAM. It was called A Shared Love, the collection of Carol and Terry Wall. And that was made up of John Singer Sargent's, William Eyre Chase, Mary Cassatt, Child Hassam. It was a remarkable show. But it was compounded by the fact that I not only got to talk to, Terry and do an interview with Terry, but I also got to talk to Robert Simon, who was his art dealer. He's an art historian and a Renaissance art collector. And so now flashback to my love of Leonardo da Vinci. Robert Simon was actually the individual who discovered the Salvator Mundi, the very controversial last Leonardo da Vinci painting that is now, I think it's the most expensive painting ever sold. And he was the first person to have discovered it and found it and sold it. So, a really, really big deal in the art world. And the lesson that I got out of that interview and those stories that I got to tell surrounding that show was the importance of showing art. I didn't really realize and understand, free ports and, how some of these incredibly sparsely sold masters are being scooped up and put away for no one ever to see and to maybe never be seen again. And that's, something that kind of really, it sits weird with me. I learned a lot more about it when I watched The Last Leonardo, the documentary that Robert Simon is featured in, which is about the Salvator Mundi. And it talks about how it, was sold and then was put into one of these free ports where it's essentially just like stuck in storage. And then it was sold, it's a question mark of if anybody will ever get to publicly see possibly the last ever Leonardo da Vinci painting. And I guess all of that being said, why museums matter to me is that people deserve to see that work. And to not show artwork that is historically relevant and socially impactful and beautiful, to not be able to share that with the world, I think is a travesty. And I think that small institutions like MAM, although we can't show everything that we possess because we don't have enough wall space, I think that we do a really good job of curating shows that celebrate new and old artists alike and give people the time and space to really take in a work and to consider, the artist's intentions and to let the work breathe in a way that is palatable and accessible. And I'm super proud of that. I'm proud of the work we do here. And I hope that if you haven't been to MAM, you come and you see what we have in store. We have tons of really great stuff on the walls right now. But I encourage you to go to any institution, big or small, whether it's your local institution or, a Smithsonian. It is important to cherish these works and to celebrate these works and to consume these works because you never know where they're going to end up ultimately. And that's a scary, weird, heartbreaking thing. They often say that the art world is cold. They often say that the art world is cutthroat and heartless. But I think that there's so much heart in these paintings and so much love and so much passion. And I think that it is imperative that while you can, you go and enjoy these pieces, celebrate them, love them, cherish them. My time at MAM and the stories that I got to tell with, a shared love, my favorite artist right now, aside from Leonardo da Vinci, is John Singer Sargent. I am just so inspired and enveloped in what it is that he was able to do with a brush. And so I don't think I'll ever get to see every single John Singer Sargent painting, but the fact that A Shared Love was able to go on view here at MAM and be shown from a private collection of works that hung in Terry and Carol's home, along with whatever other institutions they showed them in over the years, that's a really special thing. And, when the Met or the Musée d'Orsay in France show Sargent in Paris, I'm going to go see those works because I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to see them again. That's why museums are for me. It is special, it's intimate, it's educational. There is nothing like seeing a beautiful work of art for the first time. And then to see it again and again and again and learn about yourself and the world around you because of it and the way that it informs you every time that you go and see it is so special and amazing. And yeah, I love museums. I love the arts. I love to tell stories about the arts. And I hope that this show and museums like MAM inspire you to be more engaged and interested in what museums have to offer. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this episode. This has been episode 50 of Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. I will talk to you again next week. We release episodes every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And besides that, you can visit MAM on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday every week. We have tons of events going on all the time. And yeah, check out our website for more information. Don't forget to rate, like, subscribe, wherever it is you stream podcasts. And follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you're social. So anyway, I will talk to you next week. Bye.
you.